All right, everybody, I can't tell you what an exciting moment this is because we're about to do the actual data analysis. Up until now, we've just been sorting out the data so we can work with it. Now we're time to analyze the data. So again, here are all the products, right? Because when you multiply, you get a product of, for attitude 2, right? Belief evaluation by belief strength. For those 4 attitudes, there they are for the first person, for the second person, for the third person, and so forth. These are all the subjective norms. I call them SN, subjective norms. And here's perceived behavioral control, which was me multiplying perceived power by control beliefs. Right? And so these are all of my scores. If I ever forget what are these, again, I'll look back at my sort of master sheet and look back at my survey. Okay. So what we're going to do is a correlation. So a really simple test, and you have electron correlations that I posted for you, and so you should check that out. So what we're going to do is go up to Data, Data Analysis. There's already selected for us correlation. Okay, and they had some data. There we go. I did a practice run, so it's still there. All right, so input range, click on that, and we're going to choose the columns. You can see what I'm doing here. The columns with all of our variables. I'm selecting every one of them, right? That's all the attitudes. See, this is perceived power. This one right here is perceived power. AI is perceived power, but this is attitude, 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 attitude. Here are my 4 subjective norms and my 3 perceived behavioral control, excuse me. And then these are 3 behavioral intent. In your current class, how often? If you do it again, how much do you think you'd end up watching? And then what percentage have you watched in your current class? Right? Now, if I didn't say labels in the first row, I'll show you what happens. I'm going to hit OK. Instantly get an error message. And it's going to say it can't do it because there is non-numeric data, which are these labels. So we're going to try it again. We're going to say labels are in our first row. And so that's very important. And so it's going to, I selected a new worksheet, and I'm going to call this results. Okay. And so it's going to, when a new worksheet is, see down here, we're in sheet 1. It's going to add a worksheet in. It's going to call it results, and it's going to put all the answers in. I'm going to hit OK. It'll probably process for up to a minute. Actually, probably not quite that long, but it will take it a few seconds at least to actually do the math. So let's hit OK. This is the moment of truth. It's very exciting. I have not seen the data before, so let's do it. It is working. It is working. It'll open the sheet when it's done. See, because it's there we go. And there are the data. So what then do all these numbers mean? Well, to understand them a little bit better, I have to go back to my actual survey and look at those items. So for instance, the first attitude was about passing the class and whether or not lecturers contributed passing the class. And the second was learning as much of the class as possible and how lecturers supported that. And then it was getting as high a grade as possible in the class and did lecturers contribute to that. Right? And then the fourth one attitude was getting a high quality education, and then how much listening lecturers contribute to that goal. And we go over here and we see on this chart, right? So this chart shows everything, how it relates to everything else. So it shows how attitude 1 relates to attitude 1, which is 100% correlation, right? Shocking to everybody, right? That attitude 1 is just like attitude 1, right? So what we're interested in really is about behaviors. And these are the 3 items about behaviors, right? You can see up here what it says. In your current online class, how often do you listen or watch the required online lectures? And it's never always. 1 was never, 7 always. And then it was, if you were to take an online class again, what percentage of lectures would you listen to? Right, it was 0 to 100%. And then in your current class, what percentage of lectures do you listen to? And it was 0 to 100%. So what I'm interested in then is how do, with attitude 1, attitude 2, all of these, all the way out to PBC, perceived behavioral control 3, how do they correlate with their likelihood to engage in the behavior? So I said attitude 1 was, let's go back again, attitude 1 had to do with passing the class and whether or not people thought that these lectures would help them pass the class if they cared about it. And so just at this first behavior in your current class, how often do you listen to or watch the required lectures? There's really no relationship between people's thoughts, feelings about whether or not lectures are going to help them pass the class or not. We don't have any sense of what the relationship is. If there is, it's really tiny and not even worth talking about. But this one is almost moderate. This one's pretty strong, so let's look at that one for a second. So attitude 3, back to my survey, attitude 3 was getting as high a grade as possible in the class is desirable or undesirable, and listen to lectures will help us to do that. So I go back over here to the data, and we see, right, that a person's response to how often you listen to lectures has a pretty strong relationship to attitude 3, right, which was their person's desire to get a higher grade in the class. And that means if a person doesn't care much about getting a higher grade in the class, then that's going to suggest to us they don't watch the lectures very often. And if the person is very concerned about getting a high grade in the class, they're probably going to listen to them more often, right? That 4.3 just tells us, that 0.43 there tells us how strong is the relationship. When the number goes up, their motivation to get a high grade, right? How much is it going up tells us how much more likely they're to listen to lectures, and the reverse, as they don't care about how high of a grade they can get, tells us how little they're going to care about whether or not they watch all the lectures. I'm going to do another lecture for you that sort of unpacks these numbers a little bit more and shows you how to use them in your paper, but that is the basics for doing data analysis and then reading the chart, right? And we're just looking at the rows that have the behaviors and what relationships do those rows have with the attitude, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control variables that are the columns. Okay, I hope that makes sense.